Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Kaijudo Masters and Acolytes. I am Poji Force, the Kaijudo Hatter and its self-proclaimed Darkness Master. Today I have for you a very special double deck profile. Alright, now before we get into the actual profiles themselves, let's talk about the theme for this video. As you may know, today is April 1st, the April Fool's Day, a day known for elaborate pranks, or, you know, if you're just bad at April Fool's Day, you tell bold-faced lies that nobody believes and follow up with an April Fool's Day, you know, something like this. So yeah, I'm actually 20 feet tall, you know, I'm actually a giant. You know, the room is, I'm in a big house, I'm in a giant's house, I live in a giant valley. My clothes are handmade by little people, you know. It's like, April Fool's Day! I totally got you guys, you know, I got you, you know, I got you, you know. That was a total lie, yeah. I'm actually a robot. So that's April Fool's Day in a nutshell. Now, yesterday was Easter Sunday, a day that we hold sacred for the resurrection of Jesus Christ 3 days after his death on the cross. Or, you know, if you're not Christian, it's bunnies and eggs and bunnies laying eggs. I don't get the biology of that, but that's Easter to non-Christians. So it's fluffy white bunnies and happy days and be thankful for. That's Easter, everybody. Now, for me, I find it ironic that these two events that are so different from each other are only one day apart. Today is April Fool's Day, April 1st, and yesterday was Easter Sunday. So you have the death and resurrection of Christ next to an event about getting one up on your fellow man and being tricky and deceitful. So I thought it'd be interesting, since these two events are like day and night. Today I am profiling for you decks of dark and light. Now, in honor of the holy figure that is Jesus Christ, I am representing today Easter Sunday with a mono light deck. Now, this deck I am calling Slow Ride. This is version 1. The version name for this deck is I didn't playtest this at all, because I did not playtest this at all. Now, this deck, as it currently stands, it's going to be seeing a lot of changes because there are certain cards that I simply need more of. I only have 1 Lyra of the Blazing Sun in here. I intend to have 2 more, have a full playset. I have 1 Orion Radiant Fury in here. I don't intend to have this in here at all, and I want to replace this with 3 Andromeda. I have Lux here because even though I only have the 2 dragons, they are still dragons. Keeping them around longer with Lux is good. And to kind of act as a stand-in for Andromeda, since I don't have it right now, I have 2 copies of Earth the Overlord. Now, the point of the deck is to... Now, these are the big hitters, but the point of the deck is really to stall out your opponent and keep... It's basically a mono-light control deck. So, I have... for blockers, I have Star Lantern, which taps enemies when he blocks. And I have Prism Blade Enforcer, which is just a really nice big blocker. You're playing mono light, you should play it. You can attack, it's 3,500. It's good. Grandeur is a great fatty blocker, because even with dragons being rampant right now, it's bigger than a lot of threats that see play. So, you drop a Grandeur, and unless they're throwing out something like Orion or Andromeda or Infernus, they're not going to get over a Grandeur. Now, for spells, I have Storm Spark Blast, Sun Shock, and Spark Cage. All of these spells do pretty much literally the same thing. They tap enemy creatures because that is all light is good for. Incidentally speaking, light, aside from being the civilization of order and law and purity, I find it ironic that they're also the civilization in terms of the TCG for spell retrieval and manipulation. It's ironic because 90% of their spells suck. Being honest here. 90% of their spells suck. But these are the good ones here. Sunshock is good because it's nice and cheap. It's a blast. It can save you. Storm Spark Blast because it's not as cheap, but it's still a blast, and it's huge, and it's one of the few spells that can affect certain creatures, mainly King Neptus. Spark Cage is really good. Came out with Dragon Strike Infernus because it's a draw spell essentially. I've seen people, mainly Nick, play it not for its tap effect, but just for the ability to draw a card. Mono Light doesn't have really a draw engine. The only draw card before Dragon Strike Infernus was Argus Vigilant Seer, and that card was terrible. Just saying. Alright. 2 Keeper of Dawn to retrieve my spells, because the ones that I have here are good. Starlight Strategist as my stand-in for Lyra, not quite as good. Twilight Commander, because these mono Civ decks at some point have to go aggro to win. Twilight Commander helps with that. I have Aurora Valkyrie here. It's a big beat stick. I've got 4 guys he can, 6 guys, Earth the Overlord, 6 guys he can evolve from. He's pretty big, and whenever he wins battle, I get to draw a card. So it's another draw card for light. At least it's better than Argus. Argus had to win battle to draw a card. He was only 2,500. Okay, I've already mentioned Keeper of Dawn. Now I got down here Blinder Beetle, Magris, and Prism Blade Enforcer. These are my enforcers for my 2 Halon Paragon of Light. If I had Kobolds, they'd probably be Kobolds, because the idea would be to stall. So you'd run Cobalt for the shield generation. I'd run Andromeda both for its shield generation and the fact to slow roll opponent's aggression. The whole point of the deck is really to take your opponent on a slow ride. Now, the Darkness Civilization is known for its trickery, subterfuge, and its deceit. So in honor of the April Fool's Day spirit, I have for you here a Mono Dark deck. This deck I am lovingly naming Gravedigger, and this particular build I am calling 13 Dead End Drive. Now, the reason why I call it 13 Dead End Drive is because the deck has 13 spells. It has 3 Bone Blades, 3 Return from Beyond, 3 Terror Pit, 3 Gloom Tomb, and 1 Death Smoke. Those are all of my spells. Down here I have your standard Chimera engine. I have Gigabolver, Screeching Scaradorable, Scaradorable of Gloom Hollow, and Gigastand, all at 3 each, as well as a full set of Hydra Medusa. Also up here, I have the Monodark staple, Scavenging Chimera. It is a Chimera, and it is one of the most important cards to this deck, because the deck named Gravedigger, called 13 Dead End Drive, the deck is all about getting creatures back from the discard pile. It's very interesting in that way, because it's essentially this deck's draw engine. Now, normally Mono Dark doesn't have a particularly good draw engine, but in this case, I've seen this deck like constantly maintain a hand of 5 to 6 cards because it's always getting cards back from the discard pile. In a way, it's kind of ironic because it's almost like this deck could represent Easter Sunday as well. Because just like Jesus rose from the dead in 3 days, this deck will be retrieving creatures from the discard pile as early as turn 3. We have Scavenging Chimera for that purpose. You play him turn 2. Turn 3, he attacks, you get a creature back from your discard pile. Gloom Tomb is a 3-cost spell. You play it, you mill the top 3 cards of your deck, you pick 1 creature and add it to your hand. Gloom Tomb is probably the most important spell in this deck for that purpose because it is the heart of the draw engine. Scavenging and Gloom Tomb work really well together because turn 2 you play Scavenging Chimera. Turn 3 you play Gloom Tomb. You mill your deck, which means you are generating cards in your discard pile to get back. You get 1 back automatically from Gloom Tomb, and then you attack with Scavenging Chimera and get back another one. We also have Patchwork Surgeon at 1. He's also a Chimera, so he can evolve into Hydra Medusa if needed. He allows me to pick a creature in my discard pile and add it to my hand. I have 1 Black Feather of Shadow Abyss for traditional darkness draw when things die, and Chimera Tyrant as just a big fatty. If I were to edit this deck further, I'd probably take these 2 cards and play a full set of Patchwork Surgeon. Everything would be running at 3, but from my experience, Patchwork Surgeon's really good. Over here, I have, in combination with Gigastand, I have Fumes and Grudge Weaver. This is the discard engine of the deck. Grudge Weaver, when it dies, it's a blocker, and when it dies, your opponent must discard a card. Fumes, you play it, your opponent discards a card. Gigastand, you attack, your opponent discards a card. So I've got 3 different ways to make my opponent lose hand advantage, and that's very important. That's what makes this deck, allows this deck to play like a control deck. And the general concept of the deck is this deck can play very recklessly because there's so many ways to get creatures back. So, especially if I have Scavenging Chimeras in play, especially if I have multiple Scavenging Chimeras in play, this deck can actually willingly sacrifice creatures knowing that I'll be able to get them back and replay them, especially for creatures like Fumes and Hydra Medusa that have really good come-into-play abilities. This is more of a boon than a drawback. It's like I attack, I throw my Hydra Medusa at something big, attack with Scavenging, get it back. Next turn, I'll be able to play it again. Now, the one drawback of this deck is that if you're going up against nature, nature does not send cards to the discard pile. It sends them to the mana zone. So this deck may have trouble maintaining a hand against a nature deck, especially since nature decks or Saberbolt decks can get something as big as 7,000 power out as early as turn 4. While you have Scaradorb of Gloom Hollow that can block it, the only way you're really going to get rid of it as early as turn 4 is with Bone Blades, and there's only 3 of those in there. And if you Gloom Tomb and you accidentally mill it, you just reduced your odds there. So you have to be careful with Gloom Tomb. If you're in a tough situation, it might not be the best time to play it. If your discard pile is already full of creatures, you got plenty of other ways to get things back. So this deck, it's pretty good against mono fire because Grudge Weaver is a blocker, and when it dies, your opponent discards a card. And mono fire has a hard time maintaining a hand to begin with. So you block. If it's a 1,000 power creature, typically you trade with it, and then they have to discard a card. Gigabolver is just really bait for Hydra Medusa, but it's also good anti-aggro in that he can get out there early, and if they swing in with something that's 3,000 or less, he's going to die anyway. You attack it with Gigabolver. So this is the Darkness deck. You know, it does what it does, and it does it very well. This deck has beaten Bottle, and it has beaten Saberbolt, just barely, but it's beaten it. It's beaten a lot of decks. This deck, as you could probably tell, is a lot more finished than the light deck. This is version 3, and I've already described what I'd probably do to make it version 4. This is version 3 of Gravedigger, known as 13 Dead End Drive. So those are the decks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this special seasonal video. That was Mono Dark, Gravedigger, 13 Dead End Drive, and Mono Light, Slow Ride. I didn't playtest this at all. I understand that I probably said a lot more about the dark deck than I did about the light deck. Now, as I said, this light deck is very incomplete and is very unplaytested. As I get cards to further update this deck, you can expect a much more involved, analytical deck profile for this deck. In the meantime, this is really the best I can do for you. It's an idea that I had been sitting on, but I'm kind of lacking the cards to build what I want to build. So those are the decks. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to Earthpower's channel, Thundersultan's channel, Kaijudo Channel's channel. That's a funny one to say. There's a lot of really good Kaijudo duelists out there with really good channels. You know, check them out. I have a Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. And I think that's everything I have to say for now. So I hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. Duel on, Kaijudo Masters, and I will see you all later.